Strategy. It's the thing that everyone wants to talk about when they want to talk about it, and the thing that nobody talks about until it suddenly becomes hyper relevant. Welcome back to Amplify Your Impact. This is a show for entrepreneurs out to change the world with their purpose driven businesses while increasing their own wealth and health, staying in balance along the way. Warning, real life entrepreneurship is raw. So is this show. We record it live. It is unedited, unfiltered. We like to say, tighten your mula banda and let's go. I'm Josh Biro. Today's guest is someone that you need to know because he specializes in strategy for small business, which is an uncommon conversation. My experience as a business coach is it is a necessary conversation, though. Really happy to welcome onto the podcast today, Mr. Jimmy Newson. Jimmy, thanks for jumping on and coming to chat with me today.
It is absolutely my pleasure. When I got the invite, I was like, yes, let's do this.
Let's do it. We're just going to jump right in. Superhero origin story is often the starting point. You run a business. Well, I'll let maybe you introduce the business. Moving
Okay.
forward, small business, right?
Sure. Yep.
Uh,
Absolutely.
Briefly, what is that? And then I want to back us up and talk about how we got there.
Absolutely. Moving forward, small business is about being the strategic support system you didn't know you needed. And because as well, strategy, even though you did a great job bringing it in, it's still like not a very sexy word. And people go, oh, I'm not ready for that. I just want to just make a few dollars. And I'm like, everything is strategy. And the sooner you can understand that, the easier your life will be. And it took me a long time to make that circle. So for us, it's really about moving forward. Small business is about how do we lift all of these ships. There's so many small businesses that fail for various reasons, and to me, the underlying meaning in 99.9% of the cases is around the strategy. Whether it's finance, marketing, or sales, it's still strategy.
I like it. So, how did you become a strategy expert then? I mean, take us back to. And the reason I ask this question is I feel like the path to this type of business is usually a fascinating one. So I'm
It,
legitimately curious
it,
how we got there. Yeah.
it is definitely trial and error. My background is actually in the music industry. So I had a band. I play a number of instruments. I was on the stage singing and dancing and all that loveliness. And at the end of that, which was around, of course, there's a lot of stuff that happened way before that, but we're going to start there. And around 2005, 2006, I broke my group up. We were literally just about to be signed to Disney. Okay, we were R&B hip hop group backed by a rock funk band. My friend. So we were
Nice.
playing all the places in New York City, the Bitter End to Arlene's Grocery, if you know those spots. And then my when we were about to get signed, my band kind of lost their mind. They went into that whole where are they now on VH1 before we actually got famous, because everybody just lost their mind. And then I said, I'm done with all of this. Try to figure out what I was doing that I could do that required less involvement from anybody other than myself, so that I
Mm.
can control the outcome. And that was video. At the time, I started doing a lot of video for a group and stuff. This was like around the MySpace time, if you remember that platform.
Yeah.
And so I said, let me go do video. But I said, let's go do it for like corporate America, and they got budgets. So I'm not doing anything on based on I'm going to be a star one day, so you should work for us for free until I become a star. And at that point, I started doing video, and then I started working with AOL and Yellow Pages, and so I started doing video for small businesses. And as I would do these videos for small businesses, it really started to open my mind up about the similarities and the differences between all small businesses, because I was filming everything from car wash companies to dog walking companies to catering. So I got to see the similarities between all businesses and then the uniquenesses of each business and each industry. And I did that for about 5, 6 years. And I mean, I was heavy into it. I mean, maybe two, three videos a day. So I
Mm.
really got a chance to really understand what they were trying to do. Now, the problem that would come up to in regard was they didn't know what to do with the videos. So when I go back to try to sell them more video, they're like, oh, well, it didn't really do any good. We put it on YouTube and we got 3 views. And I'm like, so what else? What did you do with the video? They're like, well, we put it on YouTube. The YouTube's supposed to do some stuff. I'm like, YouTube is not supposed to do anything. That is you.
Right.
That's all you. I'm like, if I give you 1,000 business cards and you sit them on the edge of your desk, how many people are going to grab it? They're like, well, that's ridiculous. Nobody's going to come into our building to grab a business card. It goes, but that's what you did with the video. You just put it in a spot and expect people to come to it. They go, it's a
Mm.
tool like any other tool, and you need to, and that tool is meant to get you the business, but you have to put that tool into a structure. What is that? What do you need to build and put that tool into? And so the big aha was one day I had one of my really great clients. She was like, you're kind of really into all this stuff. Why don't you become our marketing person? And I was like, I don't want to do marketing. I just wanted to make some videos and make some money. And it spiraled into that. Next thing you know, I went from video marketing to digital marketing. And then from there, I went into business consulting and advising, because even with that next step, people think they're looking for that magic bullet. And what
Mm.
you have to look for at a more holistic approach. If you're doing digital marketing, that's great. But if you're not coupling it with the fact that you have a strong business foundation, you've got great partners, you've got all these other things affect how you might use that piece of that asset. And when you don't, and you treat it like a single piece, well, you're basically banking everything you've got on that one thing. And then when it fails, you wonder why it failed. And it's because you
Mm.
didn't take into account, what else do I have that can actually support this as we're moving forward? And that is what eventually brought me towards strategy.
There's so much to unpack here already. I don't know, in no particular order. I'm just going to
Yeah,
jump right in on it.
yeah.
I love what you're saying, especially, we often talk about, yeah, the silver bullet, the magic pill, our human brain is always looking for that. It's not just quick fix. It's like the simple singular thing I can just do, and it's just going to make everything else not matter. And my experience in business has been that's never the case. Like, there are best business practices for sure, but it's never the one thing.
Absolutely.
Strategy, when it comes to strategy, a lot of the businesses that we work with, we would call them passionpreneurs first. Like, they're excited about their products, they're excited about maybe the ownership of the business part, but then there is no strategy in terms of like, what are we strategically trying to do with
Hmm.
all of this? Maybe start us there. Like, why is that the case? Because it seems obvious after the fact, right? Like, once you own a business, you look back, you're like, man, if I knew now, then whatever.
And that
Why do people
becomes,
not
go
build
ahead, go
that
ahead.
strategy up front?
And that
Yeah.
becomes the thing. It is exactly that. If I had known now, but if I had known then what I knew now, because you start to learn and you start to fill in the blanks, and sometimes that it's not linear. You're dropping in here
Mm.
for something, you're dropping, you're ahead there, you're behind here, but you don't know how they all connect. And this was a big thing for me. So for us, it's when we talk about strategy for a small business, we have to open up their mind and go, look, there is a really better there's a better opportunity here. There's an opportunity for us to take a step back and not just be the practitioner. And that becomes a big thing. They're great at what they do,
Mm.
but what they do is not running a business. It's what they do. And that's where they get caught into. And we forget that sometimes. I'm great at digital marketing because I worked at this company for 13 years, and now I want to start my own business, not realizing it's more than just a job that you did for the last 13 years. Now you have to
Yeah,
take into account that you have to wear all these other hats and how they interact with each other. And if you work in a silo for the majority of that, you're really in pain, because you're like, you might as well just be 16 miles from the sales department, even though they're really they're next door to each other, but you never communicated
mm.
with them in the right way to go, how do we create, harmony between the two of us? But you also now have to create harmony between HR, and you also have to create harmony between the finance department. And again, I'm saying these big words, but at the same time, I'm also thinking you might be wearing some of those hats. And if you're wearing some
Totally.
of those hats, that's fine, but you still have to look at it independently and collectively.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. I think we dominantly, it's yoga studios that I've come up coaching, and so
Hmm.
that's a perfect example of like, you're a good yoga teacher, you like teaching yoga, your friends, you open your studio, and then it's like suddenly there's all these surprises, like surprise, you've got to do whatever.
Yep.
Payroll, like the not sexy stuff. I guess from a larger, like top level strategy standpoint,
Mm-hmm.
because a little bit, and let me back this up for a second, a little bit what you mentioned makes me think of that book, The E-Myth. It's very famous, right?
Sure.
Where it's like you move from the technician into being the actual entrepreneur, the actual owner.
Mm-hmm.
And so is it that that is the path? Like the strategy is you have to expand and become this larger owner who wears the multiple hats in small business? Or would it be a viable strategy to accept, hey, I'm just the practitioner, the pro, and I'm just going to hire out everything else?
Sure.
Is that possible?
Well, it's harder when you do it that route because you are putting a lot of faith in other people. And here's
Mm,
where the difference becomes. So let's go back to, let's define what strategy means. So for me, strategy is putting that plan in place to to drive the ship to a destination. So the destination is the vision. Where do I see this organization in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? So that becomes, that's where we're all headed. And we all need to all, no matter who we are, need to go in that same direction. And then
mm,
from that, we think about, all right, if the vision is to be here, the mission is how do we do it? From the mission, then we integrate what we call the values, the value system. The values say, if this is where we're going and this is how we're going to do it, how are we supposed to behave? And the more you put, and these three things become almost the actual foundation of the strategy, because once you have a north star, nothing else matters. The only thing
mm,
that would matter is based on, now you have these three things, or what are the one, two, or three focus things we're going to focus on in the short term that will get us closer to the long term. And when we're doing that, now we start to build structure, and now we can determine who, if I'm not the right person to lead it, I just want to continue to do my thing. Now kind of have an idea of what roles need to be filled in order to make that happen. Or you have to go from small business owner to CEO. So those are going to become your two
yeah.
choices. And if you go to CEO, now you're responsible for getting the company to the destination. If not, I think a lot of small business owners, they fear bringing other people in, especially in leadership roles, because they feel they might lose control of the company. But if you did a great job of establishing the foundation, which is, this is the vision of the company, here's the mission, here's how we get there, and here's how we're supposed to behave, then when you bring people in, they have to agree to that because it's now in
Mm,
stone. And when they're not following the values of the organization, it's not you that's got to look like the bad person. You're going, this is strategy. This is what we're supposed to follow in order to get there. And they kind of know at this point, yeah, I'm not really following the values. I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do. And again, and this is where it's so exciting for smaller businesses to understand that sooner than later, to go, when you have these things in place, it makes it easier to delegate. It makes it easier to bring on people that are smarter than you. That and go, here's where we're going. You have these meetings. You make sure that everybody understands the purpose, vision, mission of the organization. One of my mentors, he would tell me about the stories of his people, of the people he would mentor and train, and he would tell me about all these other amazing CEOs. And he go, they would literally walk in an elevator with someone from the floor 4 and ask them what their values are, ask them what the mission of the company is. If you haven't internalized it, are you really living the culture of the organization?
mm. I love this idea of just the level of clarity that these three elements would bring in, with the vision, the mission, the core values being in there. It makes perfect sense. We try to
Yep.
practice them in my own business as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Admittedly, I can think back to this lack of North Star thing. Like a business that I opened, a yoga studio, years and years ago, the vision was, I don't know, can like write a good enough business plan to get a loan, open the doors, and we'll sleep on the floor and teach the classes. And like, if we can eat something, that would be great.
Mm-hmm.
That was the end of the vision, was just open the business. And so that clearly didn't work until we got smart. Once we were going, we're like, oh no, like we actually needed your words, a North Star, a destination that we're shooting at.
Absolutely.
to start to do something towards. Yeah.
And the hard
What?
part, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
The hard part is when things actually start to go in your direction. Because the moment
Hmm.
things start going in your direction, everybody wants to be a part of it. Everybody wants to help. And that is a good thing, but it's also a bad thing if you don't have direction. Because people will come in
Hmm.
with their interpretations of what you need to do next. And that tickles me when I get people that want to work with me and they're like, here's what I think we should do. I'm like, slow your roll. We got a plan. Let's figure out how you can help us with our plan. And that'll come in later when I start talking about strategic partnerships. When you're swimming upstream, you have to fit into their purpose, vision, mission, and their goals. Because when you try to come in with your own ideas, you're only adding more to their plate, and they don't want that. And I don't want that
Hmm.
because I spent a lot of time preparing to be in the position that I am in, which makes me more desirable.
Well, maybe let's spin into that right now a little bit.
Okay.
As you were saying that, I feel like that's interesting and true. I wouldn't have thought about it exactly like that. But yeah, when you're winning, you become more magnetic. Like things start to fall into your lap. From the entrepreneurial side, thing we talk about often is like the bigger you get and the more you win, then the larger opportunities you actually get to turn down to
Absolutely.
to stick to your plan. And that's a weird feeling. It's very uncomfortable at first. If you've never turned down a $10,000 offer, like it feels buckety. You
Yeah,
got to do it the first time.
yeah. Your heart's like, what did I do? And I've
Right.
seen companies fall apart because they
Hmm.
things were put in their lap that were exciting. I'm going, that's a great opportunity, but it's not right for where we're at. And trying to tell somebody that's in that driver's seat, it's very difficult for you to. You got to kind of sit back and hope that they understand before it's too late. And I worked for a company that actually literally fell apart because of something like that.
Hmm. So how do you, from a practical sense, because I think the other thing, hang on a second, let's
Yep,
define small business maybe as well, right?
absolutely.
I think technically small business is sub 10 million a year in sales or something like this. But do you predominantly work with like brick and mortar small business, online, all of the above? Like, how do you define small business?
Yeah, for us, we've adopted the SBA's definition of small business, which is actually $36 million a year or less, depending on the
Mm.
industry. 1,500 employees or less, again, depending on the industry.
Yep.
So it could range between manufacturing and e-commerce and grocery. Not I won't say grocery store, but let's just say convenience, some type of store that sells some physical products. Service-based industry is huge for this type of stuff. So there's not too many businesses that can't benefit, uh, but like a convenience store wouldn't be an ideal customer, but that doesn't mean they couldn't benefit from it if they had a really forward-thinking CEO or founder of an organization and wanted to challenge the norm and be more innovative with how they might do things, maybe digitally,
Mm.
in addition to that physical store, where you go into like a Macy's or different places like that, and they've already created a kind of a bridge between digital and physical. So, and this is where it can get really exciting, where a physical location can go digital, the digital location can go physical.
Mm.
And that's the beauty of strategy is as long as you. It's one thing to throw something out there and go, I want to be this. I want to be $100 million company. I want to be able to serve this market and be the number one in that market. That's great. The question becomes, what's your strategy? Until you come up with a strategy, you need to prove the strategy, and so that becomes the fun. Is you figure out how do I do this, and then you go, oh, okay, this can work, and keep in mind that some of the things that you might need to get to that vision might not even be created yet, but it spurs creativity. It spurs
Mm.
opportunity for something new, and it spurs innovation.
I like that. I was going to say, so reading between the lines of what you're suggesting, it's like step one is this North Star, is this vision for your macro strategy.
Hmm.
After you've got your vision, your mission, your core values, what's the next step to start to build strategy for yourself? Because also this idea of, I'd be curious what you think about this. This idea of like, I want to have $100 million company. Cool. Like, who doesn't want to have that? I suppose.
Yep. Well, then
You
let's
must
talk.
need more definition than that. You know.
Absolutely. And so now I'm going to get a little geeky on you because I'm going to, if for those who may be listening and don't know, there's two different types of KPIs, key performance indicators. Key performance indicators tell you when you're winning or losing. So those are your benchmarks to get something, to accomplishing something. And so with the KPI, there's two types of KPIs you can create. There's what we call leading indicators and lagging indicators. Lagging indicators are like you're driving a car. The lagging indicator is the back windshield. The leading indicator is the front windshield. So when you throw up just money, I want to make $100,000. That's a lagging indicator. Why? Because
Hmm.
it has to have already happened for you to know that you've achieved it. A leading indicator says we're going to launch a new product around this particular service by the end of the year, and we need 5,000 new people to buy it. That's a leading indicator. Why is it leading? Because if you got anybody, whether it's your team or your support system, your advisors, your anybody that hears that specific goal, all have to get on the same page to make that one goal happen in order, and that's what's going to lead to the $100,000. If not,
Yeah.
if you go, we want to make $100,000, everybody go, everybody's going to go in 17 different directions because you haven't defined, well, what are we going to do to actually do the $100,000? So they're going to take it on themselves to go, I think we should do this. And the other guy's going to go, I think we should do that. And the young lady's going to go, well, I think we should do this. So, and now you split your resources and then you don't hit the goal.
Yep.
So that's where, so everything starts with that vision, but then you have to put action to it. So then you ask yourself, well, what could we do in order to get, and I'll use ourselves as an example. So let's just use us. So our goal is to be the #1 strategic support system for small businesses globally. Our mission is to save 1 million small businesses from failure by 2050, leveraging innovation, technology, and strategy. So people go, how? And I go, well, first of all, we need receipts. What does that mean? McDonald's says a billion served. How do we know they served a billion people? Because they have 1 billion receipts. So it's undeniable. So we said we need to find a tool, a partner that can give us a receipt every time we help somebody win with strategy. And that receipt for us is a tool called Cascade. It measures strategy.
Hmm.
So we built a partnership with them and said every time someone joins our community, we want to give them access to this tool. And so if they're in it, now we're tracking the strategy, and now we got 1 down. Now we got 2 down. Now we got 3 down. And we map and we spread it out over by 2050. Right now we're in 2025. I got 25 years to make that happen. Okay. Now the second thing we go, well, how do we do this to scale? Well, it's a group effort. It's a group membership type of strategy. And the second thing we go, we can't do this one-to-one. We can't go out trying to get a person to sign up every time I speak to them. We need to do this at scale. So now we need strategic partners. So I have a strategic
Hmm.
partnership with one SaaS tool alone that has over 1 million users. So and I could do this all day with other tools. And again, so you see all these pieces, they start to fall in place because they start to become clear. Well, what do I need to make the vision happen? And then
Hmm.
when somebody goes, hey, Jim, you're really good at business. You want to start this shoe company with me? I'm friends with Michael Jordan. And I go, that's great. No, because if I do that, you take away my time from where I need to be spending my time, not only for me, but the people that are committed to me for that particular vision. I'm not only destroying my vision and my direction, I'm also telling them they don't matter anymore.
Yep.
Huge. And I've had that happen
Yeah.
to me.
Again.
So again, everything I'm telling you has happened to me at some point in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I love the clarity of it. Sort of this reverse engineering method. I want to jump to partnerships and some other things, but maybe just to have it in our notes here
Yeah.
for more framework ahead of time. The USP.
Yep. Unique selling
Uh,
proposition.
Talk to me about, because I imagine in strategy, like the way I look at business often, and the question that I challenge my team with often too, is like, if we're going to do this thing or that thing, like why? Like why? To what end? Or what problem solution equation do we have here? In a
Absolutely.
roundabout way, I think a unique value proposition or a USP like similarly fits in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, talk to
Well,
me about
there's
clarifying that.
yeah, and there's so much around that. There's, understanding your value as an organization and the people that are probably key members of that organization. There's also your competition. So we haven't really talked about AI, and so be clear that AI is in every aspect of everything I said. I just didn't say AI, to leverage that to help you get these things a lot quicker.
Yeah.
But for USP, you can literally have any of your favorite AI tools, of course, not every tool, analyze you versus your competitors for various things. That's one aspect. The other aspect is now, if you're lucky enough to have, uh, if you're lucky enough to have um, customers or clients, you need to be talking to them. And I think this is a big fail for a lot of businesses. They don't want to talk to their customers. And I'm like, that's the best source of information you could ever possibly get. You want to know what made you unique? Ask them why they bought from you. And you're going to be like, everything that you had in your marketing message was not what they bought from you. It was something else. And when you're able to communicate with enough of them, you're going to see a pattern. And now you're going to be like, wow, that is really a unique thing I never would have thought was why you bought from me. And now so you're pulling from all these things. You're understanding what the competitors are doing. You're using tools like SEMrush or tools like Idea 8. And these are incredible tools that can give you sentiment around your brand, that can uncover things about your competitors that you can use to your advantage. To go, if these competitors are dropping the ball in this area, here's where we can start to innovate, differentiate ourselves, and use that as a unique a unique selling proposition, unique value proposition to why they should choose you over them. We recently we compared ourselves recently to 9 different competitors in under 3 different verticals, just because we're starting to be compared to them. Score and the SBA and Entrepreneurs Organization and the Small Business SBDC, Small Business Development Center, and in most cases, they're also strategic partners. And so you just got to figure out, well, which card do you want to play? And when you understand the differences between you and them, you now can determine, well, what is our unique selling proposition? Because you best believe your customers are searching, going, how are you different from them? And they're not asking you. They're going to the internet. They're going to their search GPT tool and asking that tool. If you don't have that content readily available, well, you just lost an opportunity. So that USP becomes extremely important to make sure that you are fully aware of how you are different from not just your direct competitors, but your indirect competitors and your replacement competitors and anybody that could possibly take money out of your pocket.
How does this play in with someone who is that true passionpreneur scenario where like their belief in their product comes from their own experience with it, and they're just like, in the extreme, we might say like they've totally just drunk the Kool-Aid on the product that they have. They understand the value of it,
Mm-hmm.
but then maybe they don't have something that's unique, like comparatively in their market, there are other people saying and offering the same thing. Where this comes to mind, just for some context, is like in the yoga studio world would be a really easy example,
Mm-hmm.
where the typical like yoga is good for your health, mental well-being, flexibility is the cliche, and 80% of yoga studios on the planet have yoga for everybody as a statement on their website, which we always joke like worst marketing statement you can make as a yoga studio.
I run when I hear that line. Oh, it's for everybody.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right,
Yeah.
I'll see you when you
No.
grow up.
Right. Right. So how do you, is it that the unique part is so important that you should actively change or strategize something to be unique, or is it just a communication question? Yeah, how does that?
Yeah. And this is where people, at the end of the day, the simple answer is people buy from people they like. So it really
Mm.
becomes relationship building. You don't necessarily have to be the same, different than everybody. Take two pizza shops. They're pretty much similar. The question becomes, I know Bob, who's the owner of that pizza shop, and I like it when he says hello to me when I walk in. The other company, I feel like a number. So, and this is where you have to communicate with is when you're so busy building your product and you're drinking your own Kool-Aid, you're literally operating in a silo. You're operating in a bubble. You have to start to reach out. The hardest thing that I think entrepreneurs and business owners can do is ask their customers for feedback, and then they cringe and wait for them to say something. I do it, but I have to. I've implemented so many things in our community just because I said, "Did you like it?" And they were like, "Yeah, it was cool." That's what's wrong. And they're like, "Well, it would be helpful if you could add this one thing that would make it easy for you." And in my mind, I'm like, I thought I made this as clear as possible. Why don't you get it? But the real response is, tell me more about that. And guess what? I've implemented it, and at the end of the day, it made the entire process better. And that's
Totally.
where we get lost as entrepreneurs, not listening, not tapping into what your stakeholders might say about something that you're doing, and instead of taking offense to it, go, not everything that they say is something you have to act on, but you still have to be listening, because there will be something that you're going to go, I thought that wasn't a problem. Maybe I need to look at that. And that makes a great leader. It's not about trying to put yourself on a pedestal, it's about putting everybody else on one.
I like that, this deep listening thing. I've got to say, we're in a phase in my business where we haven't been actively doing it as much as we have in the past. It got me inspired to go. I'm like, I want to go ask a bunch of questions now. What the hell are we doing?
It's like you feel like energy when you're finished, because they want to give it to you. The thing is, they enjoy being a part of the community. And they're like, if you can fix this, I don't think I can love you anymore. Think about that.
Right. Well, and yeah, so much of it's ego, reading between the lines of what you're saying too, of just, I don't want you to give me the harsh truth because it might hurt a little bit. but then that's how you grow and improve and etc.
Absolutely.
How do you navigate then when you're talking about like client feedback in your processes or with problems that you're solving for them? How do you navigate the difference between an actual valuable piece of information of their experience? What am I trying to say here?
I know
It's
you're
like
saying,
there's always this balance of like, you want this, but you need this, and can you even articulate it? And
absolutely,
it's the old, what's the adage? Maybe it's from, maybe it was a Henry Ford quote or something like that, where they're like, if we had asked people what they want, they would have said faster horses.
Right, exactly. Well,
Or
this is where
whatever.
you
Yeah.
have to. This is where you have to really, you need input from other people. If you've got your strategy and your strategy is telling you what the steps are, the next 5 or 10 steps over the next 12 months are, that becomes one gauge to go, oh wow, this is something we can implement sooner than later. And then you might pick up something that goes, somebody's been trying to get us to license our training out, and we're like, it's a great idea, but it's not what we want to do right now. And we made it a point to say we don't want to do that yet. It's still valuable. So you have to be in this, when you're in the conversation, that strategy conversation, things start to become easier. The whole point of strategy and strategy planning is to quickly come to a conclusion, because you have something in place and now you just figure out, where does it go. So it can be a little challenging at the beginning to sift through the good ideas versus the ideas that are great, but you don't have the resources to do them right now, or you might have a specific reason not to do them right now. Someone came to us early on, it's like, why don't you just build the tool, the Cascade tool, instead of sending people to them. And I go, if I spent time building the tool, that would be all I do. I wouldn't have
Right.
our 200 hours of training. We wouldn't have members in. We wouldn't have these strategic partnerships, because all of our focus would be on this one thing. What you're asking us to do is a very heavy lift. We're not ready to do that. I'd rather use their tool. Their tool is free. And if we can build the community, the moment we do decide to build that tool, everybody that is with us because of us, not because of the tool, will move over to our tool because of us.
Mm.
And that's where you got to kind of, you're always in strategy mode. But the question is, if you don't have a strategy from the first place, my mentor said it best. You can be enthusiastically going in the wrong direction. And that was, and
it's so true.
That stuck in my head so much because we as entrepreneurs, we're taught not to quit. We're taught, get in there. But imagine that you got that mentality, but you're literally headed south when you should be heading north.
We're going the wrong way, yeah.
And you're pushing through. Cause I'm taught never to give up, and I'm taught this. And now next thing you know, you're down in you go, where's Santa? No, he's in the North Pole, bro. You're down here. It's just us penguins.
I love it. You can be enthusiastically going the wrong way. Is so true.
I wish I could credit it. I don't know who told him, but that is my line, and I stand by it.
I think something brilliant that you just said is, I'm paraphrasing, of course. It's like, with a lack of strategy, it's hard. It's to create the clarity around what's to do and what information to take in. This user feedback thing, I think one of the things, especially in service industries, that happens is you get feedback from 2 or 3 people who say, like, I really wish you would do X, Y, Z. But if that's misaligned with the strategic goal that you have right now, even if it's a good idea, it would be a distraction and therefore opportunity cost. So I didn't connect the two so directly. I think that's brilliant. That just, if you have that strategy there, it clarifies that.
Yeah, and let me jump in there. In most cases, you want to hand pick those people. I have case studies on the site. I hand picked people that I knew would tell me the truth. They've been in it for a long time. They're part of the process, and I say it that way because it could be, a restaurant where you might not, like, you go to your key people and go, who walks in this restaurant religiously all the time? Bob and his wife are always here. Lisa and her kids are always here. So you're going to go, I want to talk to them. I want to talk to them. If you're a service-based business, you've worked with a number of clients, a couple clients that constantly are booking you and they're coming back to you for whatever. You want to specifically go after those people, because even if they tell you things that you go, that's not something I'm interested in doing, it's still very relevant. And this is where you might go, never really thought about that. There's been situations where I'm like, that trumps what I was planning on doing. That's actually a really good idea. So you need to be very specific about the people. So you don't need 1,000,000 or you don't need 1,000 people to reply. You just need, depending on the size of your business or the base of your customer base. If you're service based, maybe you need 5-10 people just to start it off. If you're in more of, like, let's say you're selling shoes online, if you've got your tracking right, you can see your repeat repeat buyers. Single them out, send them something special, and go, I'd love to take 10 minutes of your time. They're going to feel special. And this is where you start to build that relationship, and they're going to tell other people. Everything we talk about here has so much potential to just overlap other things that you would end up needing anyway to help build out your strategy. And now you just got yourself an evangelist.
It makes perfect sense. I'm just thinking about, even in my own business, some experiences we've had. Not that long ago, we had a client came on, went through onboarding, and then immediately quit, which is very rare. Like, generally it's about a 2-year average that someone sticks on with us.
Okay.
And the feedback that we got from them was they didn't like something that was said in, like, a public show thing that we were doing. And it was just, they weren't a fit for us. They were a fit for our vibe or style or whatever else. So, like, no hard feelings, nothing against them. But they would be a terrible person to ask how to improve. Absolutely. Like, they went through our own onboarding, but, like, they wouldn't have had feedback that would have been really useful, I think. versus, you know, we have some clients who've been with us for 5, 8 years full time. They have participated in everything we do. Like they would have great insight into stuff. So yeah.
Absolutely. And this is where you could take, I don't use ChatGPT. I use other tools. I use like a tool called Anyword. So let's just use that. Now you also use Gemini, which I think is an amazing tool. And I'll usually leverage that with a prompt that says, look, I need to have a specific amount of questions around this product, drop in the URL of the product so it makes it relevant. Now describe the person that I'm actually going to be talking to. And then it'll pull out some amazing questions to be very specific and to the point. And you record it as a video. And the biggest thing you want to take away from that is what are the results that you got because of working with us? Because people don't pay for the I call it features, benefits, results. The features are going to give you the benefit. The benefits are going to give you the results. And the results are the only thing that they care about. So when you're able to answer that, you can, first of all, you can repurpose that because the whole objective of that is to leverage that language to bring more people like the person you just interviewed. And so you're 100% right. You got somebody who quits on day one. Yeah, you definitely don't want to touch them with a 10-foot pole when it comes to getting feedback. You'll want to know what it is that made them quit. And at the end of the day, you can say to you, this is where you can be a little bit, I want to say cocky, but they didn't like the way that we explained this. That's our way. And that's where your values come.
Right.
Our values say we're allowed to do this. So we don't change this because this is the way we are. I tend to be very animated and a little bit nuts. And when people get on and they think it's going to be some very strategic and and the S&P, and I'm just like, no, screw that. We're going to talk real. We're going to get, which is why I want to even be on this podcast. And I'm like, if you can't handle that realness, this community is not for you because I don't have another speed.
Right. And that's where I like that, taking it back to the core value part of like, that's the gut check real quick. Are we within our values? Then yes, and not all fits can be perfect.
Absolutely.
So one thing before we move on to the partnership stuff is the size of the team in terms of strategic thinking. Can you be too small?
No.
Can your business be too little where you're like, I don't need strategy. My business is so small in that like it's so simple.
No,
I just do the thing and there's nothing else.
And that's really what we stand on. Is you're not small enough. The moment you decide you want to start a business, you need to be thinking about a vision. Because like you mentioned earlier, our focus was just to get the doors open. And where'd that get you? You got the doors open, but then everybody's still not on the same page. Everybody, if you don't establish a north, everyone else will. A colleague of mine used to say it. I'm not a big political guy, but the same mentor, he said, if you don't take an interest in politics, politics will take an interest in you. And so with vision, with strategy, if you don't set a strategy that everybody can get behind, they're going to make up their own idea of what you stand for. And that's going to be whatever pops in their mind. And imagine them trying to talk to someone else about your business. How many times have you got on the phone and go, yeah, that's not really what we do. We actually do this. That's because of lack of strategy.
Right.
That is the whole point. So you're never too small. And that's what we try to tell them. The fact that if you can zone in on exactly what you really, and again, that's the hardest part. So what I'm saying to everyone listening, it's not easy. It took us probably a year before we finally got, this is it. But it's a trial and error, and you're going to come up with stuff, and then you're going to go, that's really not it. But I like that you're doing that because that means you're thinking about it. And you're really trying to find that true north. And then when you find it, it's like a eureka moment. It's like nothing else ever mattered. How I finally have arrived.
Right. That makes sense. I like what you're saying about like, basically, if you don't come up with a strategy, it's going to happen anyways. When we talk about employees in the business, this is a very common conversation where we just talk about leadership. And like, if you don't lead them or you don't give them a system to exist within, they'll build it anyways. Like they'll lead themselves, like something will happen. It might just be nothing like what you want at all. So Yeah, you've got to grab the reins of that scenario. Well, changing gears a little bit here. Talk to me about strategic partnerships. Admittedly, like full transparency here, I've had some very fruitful partnerships in my business career for years, but the whole idea of being a magnet for strategic partnerships or going and actively pursuing it, it's not my forte. It's just never been something I have a natural proclivity for. In hindsight, though, to reiterate, like some of the best sort of, I wouldn't say business breaks, but best things that have helped advance what we're doing have been through a really good partnership as well. So,
absolutely. All right. So I'm ready for this. This literally is probably my top 3 topics is strategic partnerships. So because it is such a powerful thing, and when you're able to leverage it properly, you can partner with organizations 10, 20, 100 times your size. But you have to be thinking big in order to make that happen. Because an organization like, let's just say, Verizon or Spotify or Nokia or any of these big organizations, they're not going to partner with you. They're not going to partner with you because you're small. They're not going to partner with you if they don't think you're thinking big enough. You don't have. You're gonna they're gonna give you their brand marks, and you're gonna screw up this thing. You're gonna make them look bad. And when you've got things in place like a vision and focus area and other organizations willing to work with you, they see that. They see what's going on. And when you're having conversation with them and you're talking in that language, they're like, okay, they get it. And a prime example, when I first started out in my 20s, I had an opportunity when I was living in Florida to do this big event at FAU, Florida Atlantic University, and somebody connected me with this big wig at one of these companies that was very interested in sponsoring us. Now I didn't know anything about any of this crap, right? And the guy asked me, "What's my market?" I had no clue what this guy was talking about, and I was just, and so I didn't know how to answer it, and I don't remember even what I said. But let me tell you what did happen. I couldn't get him back on the phone again because I couldn't speak the language. Basically, the market is, who do you cater to? Oh, men and women between the ages of 25 to 42 that want to buy. It sounds simple to me now, but I didn't know that. And that's where those as someone starting a business or being in business for a couple of years and not really looking at the full picture, there are going to be holes in the way you look at things, and so you might not be able to answer a simple question and ruin an opportunity. So for us, strategic partnerships are about the triple win. I call it the triple win. The triple win is the most important winner is the end user, whether that's the customer, the client, who we both serve. That person has to be ideal for both partners in order for that to work. The second win is then for the partner. When the end user wins and the partner wins, you automatically win. Why do you automatically win? Because you should have strategically chosen them for a reason. And if it works out, you win because you've already factored in how you win. And that becomes the pattern. And now the question becomes, do you have an SOP? I'm going to throw that word out there, standard operating procedure. Do you have a process in order to figure out, well, what would make a great partner for my organization? What am I looking for? And then, and now you look at the USP, the UVP. What are the things that I can offer that they can't do and I can do so well with my eyes closed that I know that they would appreciate that. Now it becomes we're in this together. And when you're able to do that, you can look at an organization as big as, I'll give an example. I was talking to a client, and she deals with individuals that are retiring. Okay, so I said, well, who would be a great partner for you? And she was like, I really love to partner with Capital One Bank. We didn't do anything with it because it's getting us up to her. So I did the research. I looked through it. I have tools. I look at what they're doing. I look at the press releases. This is a great place to understand. You target specific organizations if they're big enough. Look at what they're talking about. Look at the press releases. How can I align myself with something that they're about to do? That's another huge red flag for not red flag, but mistake that that someone can make trying to go after a bigger partner is not realizing what they're already investing their time and energy in. If you can align yourself with their thing and help them with that
Totally.
and they go, oh, wait a minute, so you're saying we can work together, but what you contribute would actually help me hit my goal. Well, you just got my attention. And when you instead of me going, hey, listen, I'm working with small business. I got this idea I want to do with small businesses, and it's going to require you to do this. And they're going, whoa, 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 whoa. I got to run that through 18 different chains of command. I don't even know if I got the budget for that, and on and on. But when you're like, so I see that you guys are working on this whole thing around retirees coming out of, that are going to that next phase of life. Well, I actually work with them as an expert, and we might be able to work together. And they're like, yeah, because that might help us bridge this one piece that we were missing because none of us are experts. We just work for the bank.
Right.
You see how it becomes so you're really
Yeah.
being strategic about, you need to do your homework on these partners and go, how can they win based on the fact that we both serve the same audience? Win, 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 triple win.
I love this triple win idea. And it's so obvious as you say it, but I think that it gets forgotten as an entrepreneur over time that if you're in service of someone else, if you're adding value to somebody else, it's going to play back. I mean, as long as the strategic partner is the appropriate one, like it does ultimately benefit you as well.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of people who contact us for partnerships, they wouldn't necessarily say this, but the reason it doesn't move forward is that it's become very clear that they want access to our community or to what we're doing, but like
self-serving.
They're actually right. They're not actually offering anything.
Yeah, and that's why 99% of them probably fell. And I just threw that number out there. I don't know if it's 99, it could be 98. But the point of the matter is that's why we have to go. It has to be the triple win. The end user has to win first. The partner has to win next. And if you come in with your vision of, here's what I need you to do for us, you immediately lost them. You have to figure out, how does the partner win? And if you've done your homework, you should win, because it has to, of course, serve you. You're just not saying it. It should be obvious. Of course, it has to serve us too. But if you don't do any homework on going, how can I help them win? And there's that repeat. You win once with them, two things happen. One, there's a good chance you're going to work with them again. And two, they're a big company. They know everybody else. Your referral could go through the roof.
Right.
Because it's hard to find small businesses that got their act together like that.
Very true.
So
I've experienced it. I've experienced it both ways. Being the small business, playing up and not being prepared maybe for what was necessary. And then same thing in reverse, people contacting us and it just being like, there's no advantage to us. It's nothing they're actually going to help us with.
Absolutely.
So within a partnership that you would have as a business owner, one thing that we've experienced is things seem like they would be a win-win, but then once you're in the partnership, it's apparent that that's not the case. Sometimes maybe it's not anyone's fault, but it's just, that's how it's worked out. It's lopsided. We've had it a few times where it feels very lopsided. So how do you navigate that?
We this year we revamped our entire partnership strategy, because we were given a lot more than we were receiving, and from big partners, and sometimes we be negotiating for months, and then get ghosted. So that is a part of the whole process, and it's freaking frustrating to the max. What you have to do is, one, you learn from it. Two, you have to start developing processes to go, here are the things that we look for in a partnership. And again, and you're constantly improving it, just like your strategy. So at the end of the day, the best thing you have on your side is what we call historical data. In the digital marketing world, that's like your Google Analytics. If you've been running it for the last 2 years, you've got historical data. You can use that to kind of go, well, what did we do right and what didn't we do right? And how can we improve that? So this year, we decided to revamp our partnerships, because we're like, okay, we're going into a new phase with our company. So we need to look at a better way of getting better partnerships. We know we bring it, but our partners are not. So it's going to be a new level of turning down partners who we probably wouldn't have turned down before, or are demanding a little bit more from them and not being afraid of them walking away. And so that becomes one great partner could do a ton of for you. You can have 10 different partnership opportunities out there, but if you don't close one, you still don't have a partnership. So it really is about learning and then adapting, so you can get better at that. And if worst case scenario, you don't want to put all your eggs in one partner. I'm going to go after 3 partners over the next 3 months. That's a goal. That can be an objective. That's part of your overall strategy. And I'm going to go after 3, and try to land 1. So you've got enough of them, and I guess it depends. If you're just going after local businesses in the area, it's going to be a lot easier to obtain than a regional or a national partner. So you might go, I'm going to go after 5 because I don't need that much. And sometimes you might go after those smaller ones just to practice, get your partnership chops up, and then again, those I forget who I heard this from, but you treat partners like you would treat a client. And when you treat a partner like a client that's paying you, you treat them like they're paying you, which is a whole different mindset. And again, that spreads. So Josh, you and I covered a lot on this call so far, and we're still talking, And I understand for someone who hasn't gone that far, wow, this is a lot of stuff you're telling me I have to do, Jimmy. And one, I apologize, but two, this is something that you don't have to do it all. Your strategy at the end of the day will tell you, well, what should come first. And again, it goes back to the basics of where am I trying to go? What resources do I already have available to me? And how soon can I get started on this strategic path? And then just do little bitty pieces. Come back when you're ready for the next step.
Maybe, Jimmy, take us one layer deeper for the last couple of questions here.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
When it comes to partnerships, like what does a first step look like? If you take it down to the smallest small business, how do you evaluate who to even go after? I'm guessing that would be one of the first steps that you would suggest.
Absolutely.
And for context, one of the things I would say here is a lot of the businesses that we coach to, they actually have a bunch of quote partnerships in place, but kind of nothing happens on either side. It's the idea that like I own a Pilates studio, therefore I should be friends with the green juice smoothie shop or whatever.
Exactly.
It's more just because they know each other than any actual strategy, So what are the first steps to start there?
Yeah. If you're in that position, which is great, become the initiator. Plan something, put something together. At the end of the day, you got to assume that person doesn't know anything about this either. And so you both kind of just doing nothing. You're both sitting in the playground going, you go first, you go first, you go first. You just have to go, look, let's plan an event and let's do this and take the lead. The problem sometimes is people are like, well, I'm not going to do anything if they don't do anything. That's the wrong attitude. That's just like being that employee that goes, well, if they don't do it, I'm not going to do it. You have to be that achiever in that group and take action and go, here's what we're going to do. Why? Because it puts you in control. And worst case scenario, you learn something and then you do it again. So it's really taking an action. So if that's the first step, that's where you go. Now, let's say you don't have any ideas of who you partner with, but that's where you might turn. Now we got this great thing called AI. It can't solve all your problems, but it can also actually be your brainstormer. And go, I am a yoga studio that specializes in A, B, C, and D. What are 4 different industries I could partner with today, and how would I partner with them? And you'd be surprised how accurate that gives it back. Now you've got yourself a plan. You go, all right, I've got 4 different opportunities. Which one makes the most sense? Which one can get me to revenue quicker? Which one do I have anybody in that network? Or maybe I put it out on LinkedIn. Hey, does anybody in my network have a contact in this industry or this something? Because you never, and that takes me to who you don't know who's in your own backyard, and you're not leveraging that opportunity. Start tapping the people around you and go, hey, I'm looking for something to do, something specific. and this is what I need this type of opportunity, this type of situation. And they might go, my cousin just blah 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 blah, and you're like, what? You just
Right.
don't know. You have to put it out there, but you have to be strategic about it. So figure out either what are great opportunities. I do everything in threes. If I need copy, I do three variations of copy because I want to find the best one and merge it with the other two until I get the best piece. I don't ask for one of anything, whether it's a design, whether it's, and when I do get those things, now I have tools. So you can drop like a website into a tool like Uber Suggest, which is owned by Neil Patel, or SEMrush, which is one of my favorite tools, or Ahrefs. All these tools have free versions, and see what their online presence looks like. You can spy on them and see what they're posting. You want to, before you get in bed with someone, you want to get to know them. So the second step is, regardless of if you know the person or not, you have to do your research. Look at their website. The simplest is go to their website and go through their products and services. See if they have testimonials. It's just basic market research, because 9 times out of 10 you want to do something that has, if you're a physical store, you want to do something that has both an online and offline component. If you're 100% online, you obviously want to know how they're doing online. So you start with either what's in your backyard, or two, you understand their digital presence. And if you can see enough between those two things, you can either make assumptions that their audience is your audience, maybe you already know, or you can talk to your existing clients and go, in addition to my product, what other products do you have to buy to that are in alignment with us? And they go, oh, well, I love blah 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 down the street, and every time I leave from you, I go to them. And you're like, well, why would you do that? And they're like, because blah blah blah. And you're like, genius. It's
Right.
it's really,
Right.
again, and that's why I say I'm giving you a lot of strategies, but these strategies actually serve like 3 or 4 different purposes. The question is, can I figure out how many different ways I can leverage this, what I just learned from this individual? I learned about a new competitor. I learned about a new opportunity. I learned about this. I learned about the fact that my team hangs up on them too fast and they want to talk more. Whatever that the craziness is, you're learning a
Mm.
lot of stuff. Now you're going, how do I break this up and distribute it out to the areas that need it the most?
Yeah. One thing you mentioned a moment, you used the term in your backyard.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Prior to the call, it was one of the things that came up in sort of our prep for this. Like, I think your term was your gold mine might be in the backyard. It's this
Yep.
idea of your next big move sort of hiding in plain sight. I feel like every entrepreneur who's excited about the business has the curse of the shiny object chasing. Like, here's this, I could do this, and now why don't we try that? And I'll just do this thing over here. And that is fun, but also burns you out and may not actually get you somewhere. Talk to
Mm-hmm.
me a little bit about the big move or like the opportunity that's in plain sight.
Yeah, this is where, again, being very clear on what you do. Um, and I'm guilty of this. I'm trying to take over the world, and I live in one of the greatest cities on the planet, New York City, and I'm on Long Island, and to me, Long Island is different from New York City, which is of course Queens, Brooklyn, Manhattan, all them. So even within them, they're all different. I have some that I really enjoy, and then I have certain areas I couldn't care less about. And so a prime example is Long Island. I don't do much on Long Island at all, but I'm now negotiating one of the biggest partnership deals of my life. And it was because I put something out there. I wasn't really trying to, but someone bit. Really big partner. I can't mention it yet, and hopefully it comes true. But it's massive, and it started here on Long Island. And I'm like, it makes sense when you think about it.
Mm.
It's just you didn't think about it, and you're like, how did I not see this? So what we're really talking about here is just throwing your antennas up and going, let me think about what I'm doing here. How could I benefit this local community? Especially when you're thinking globally or you're thinking nationally. It's still a local world that we live in, even though everybody's talking about everything is so global. It's both. So the question becomes, which one do you want to play? And which one could be easier? When I play locally, it costs me less. I don't have to travel. I don't have to buy tickets. I don't have to bring a ton of people. I don't have to transport a ton of crap. And I'm like, and I'm home by 5 o'clock. I just got back from a conference. It cost me 4 days, and I'm still playing catch up.
Right.
So it's really, and for local businesses, it's obvious. It's really for your service-based businesses, your coaches and consultants that might have the ability to expand beyond the borders of their like a 5 or 10 mile radius. Even with the yoga studio, they have the ability to be both local, nationally, and global. Because when they're able to take and package their products and services in a digital format, that changes the game. It really helps
Yeah.
them. We saw that a lot during the pandemic when, I had a colleague of mine, big fitness guy. He started doing classes online and this and that because they were forced to do that. And a lot of them reverted back when everything came back. They just abandoned it. And I'm like,
Mm.
you don't abandon it. It is now a part of your offering. Now you figure out how you continue that momentum because that momentum can take you into other parts of the country and other parts of the world.
Yeah.
And it could make you more money than your studio at some
Right.
point.
I mean, massive market shift if you can make that jump.
Absolutely. But it starts small. So it's not, you don't have to be dominant in the digital guru on day one. You have to build a rep, and then you have to invest in digital assets and create digital assets and build momentum. So when you go to different parts of the world or different parts of the country, you're just going to give people access. That's how we did it with ours. We're like, all right, we'll build a foundation here. But I came back from Kentucky, but you already know I've got 5 opportunities on the table now. And I'm like, how can we take what we're doing, bring it there locally for Kentucky, for Kentuckians? I hope that's what they're called, business owners to do stuff because, they were talking about economic development. We support small businesses. How can we do that together? I'll come maybe once every quarter, but we'll give access to the community there. And then if somebody there wants to be a liaison for us, we didn't have that before. It's an opportunity. And what's the opportunity? The opportunity helps us get closer to 1 million small businesses under our umbrella. That's the focus. So if that helps us do it, we now have paths to do it.
Then worth it. Two questions that shake out from this, and your story of your friends in fitness
Mm-hmm.
is a good segue to this. What's a hard truth in building this that you've had to learn?
This here, you're talking about for my business itself or his business?
Yeah.
For
No,
my
for
business,
for yours. His just being like, COVID was an interesting moment. You had to pivot, you had to do this thing, but then this idea of like reverting back. But like the hard truth is, if you want this bigger market,
Mhm.
don't abandon this thing you've already got established. Maybe.
Yeah, I think the
But
biggest,
for you, yeah.
yeah, the hardest lesson for me, the biggest thing is thinking that people get what I'm trying to do. And again, and I think I'm pretty damn clear. And this is where I'm humbling myself to go, not as clear as I thought it was, or I'm not talking
Mm,
to the right person. So you have to start to look at that, and you have to try to be as objective as humanly possible, which sometimes can be hard when you're so close. And so I'll get on a call with members of the community and talk to them, and they're like, he's talking to us. Not that I'm all of that, but when you have people that follow you and you're going to them, I want your input because I'm struggling. They're going, you must think, and I'm going, absolutely. I go, so for me, it was definitely um, realizing that not everybody wants this, or not every. I think the biggest thing was not everybody wants to grow. That was a hard pill for me to swallow. I'm talking to business
mm,
owners, and they're just like, well, I'm actually kind of comfortable where I'm at, and I'm like, but sky and space and Pluto, and they're just like, don't care.
yeah.
And so it's a hard pill to bear. Like I couldn't imagine anybody not wanting to grow, but there it is.
Yeah. Well, and to that point, like if you have no desire to grow, then you don't need a strategist to help
There you
partner you
go.
to
And
do
then
anything. So
I just turn
yeah.
around and walk in the other direction.
By an extension, what would you say? What's sort of a weird belief or maybe a controversial take about entrepreneurship that you have that you feel like isn't
I
normally voiced?
I think let me think about that. I think really that people just don't fully understand what they're getting themselves into. We
Hmm.
all get lured by the fact of being our own boss without ever really understanding what does that really mean. And I have to tell you, it's ups and downs, and people go, "This
Yeah.
is horrible," and I go, that's that's just we've gotten used to that. I mean, there'd be days where uh, even today, I'm just like, I don't want to get out of bed. Why am I doing this? And people are like, you? I'm like, absolutely. But I know it's a phase now. I'm just feeling in a funk. Something happened, and I haven't identified what it is, and it's making me feel like crap. So I'm gonna let this play out, and it might take me a day, so I'll have to maneuver a little bit, but I'll be back. you know so it's understanding that you really have to be tough, and in a tough that in a way that I can't even describe the toughness that you have to be an entrepreneur. I hope I answered the question.
It answers the question. It absolutely does. It spiderwebs me into 20 other ones, but I think the most important one would be then, what have you found for yourself that helps to keep you grounded and keep you able to handle that in these being tough moments? Because I totally agree with what you're saying. Like, as an entrepreneur, you're going to get punched in the face. That's just the truth of it. But
Absolutely.
it's what do you do afterwards that matters, right? So, what's worked for you?
I tell you, and it's self-sabotage. I sabotage myself. And I'll explain two ways. One, I hate mornings. I hate mornings with a passion. I am not one of those guys that are up at 5 a.m. and they're like, the key to success is 5 a.m. I'm like, nope. Because I'm so structured that I can work during the day. You ain't getting on my calendar unless I let you. So I don't do interruptions. So for me, the I sabotage myself when I'm in a bad funk by one, either scheduling appointments as early as possible in the morning when I hate them, because I know because it triggers number two, whether it's a client meeting, whether it's a member meeting, or whether it's a new potential partnership. When I get off that call, I feel like $1 million. It's just getting there. So that's how I kind of help myself until I get out of it. And it might take me 4 days. So I'll schedule something early those 4 days when I get off that call, I remember, especially when I'm talking to a client or a member, because we'll be talking about something. I'll go, oh, let me show you this tool, and they'll be like, oh, that's great. Can I? And then you just forget. Next thing you know, you hang up. You're like, yo, it was great talking to you. I'll talk to you later. And you're like, that's why I do what I do, and that's what gets me back. So I call it self sabotage. I'm not sure if that's the right term, but I sabotage how I normally do things because I know I hate certain things.
Right. But yeah, when you first said self-sabotage, I'm like, I think that's something different. But
Yeah.
no, it makes sense. And I actually personally resonate with what you're saying because it's when you're having the toughest week that then you have a good win working with the client and you get to sort of vicariously experience it through their wins too, that then you're just
It
back on it
energizes
again and
you.
can keep going. So
Yeah,
totally.
because that's exactly what you do. You're helping them, and so when you're on with them, and again, I could just schedule an appointment, not just because I'm like, "Hey, Lisa, you want to go on a call tomorrow? Let me see what you're up to." And she's like, yeah." I'm like, "Great, 30 minutes. I'll send you over the invite." And I do that because so there won't be any. I'll just be like, "Tell me about what you're doing," and then we just start to work. She
Hmm.
gets a free session. I get to feel better about myself.
Yeah. It's a smart technique. I feel like that is pretty applicable for a lot of businesses because
Yeah.
all you're doing is making the client happy, getting yourself in, like it makes perfect sense.
Hmm.
Jimmy, this has been great. Obviously, we could talk strategy and keep going all day, I think. But I want to make sure we've got a moment here at the end. Talk to me about moving forward small business and the sort of membership that you've mentioned a few times here. How does that work? Who is that for? How does someone take a
Sure.
look at what you're doing?
Absolutely. So I created it again to kind of bridge the gap with all the stuff that we literally talked about today. There's so many moving parts under strategy, and it's different for every business. The formula I use is A plus B equals C. Your A plus your B will equal your C, but that person's A plus their B will equal their C. So that's the formula. You just have to put in the variables, which is your A and your B, and then come to the conclusion of what that C should be. And it sounds as simple enough. It's, of course, a lot more complicated, but this just shows that the same thing I might teach you and teach someone else, you're going to get different results because of where you are in your business, what resources you have available to you. But if you do the work, you will get some results. Okay. So for us, for moving forward small business, we're the crust of what we do is based around our month frameworks, which is a month long uh, kind of like a program. We pick a very specific evergreen high level topic that should be relevant to the whole community, and we dive in deep. At the beginning of the month, we launch a action plan. Then a week after that, we do a call on that plan as a group. So it's a group attended thing. So they become part of the training. And then after we do the live call, then we go into 5 days of implementation. So we actually do work on that topic for 5 straight days. If they miss it, then they just get the recording. But they can communicate even after the fact that the recording is done. And then at the end of the month, we do what we call coffee and convo. And we talk about what went right, what went wrong. And there's that feedback loop that helps us get feedback on the topic, helps us get feedback on our training, helps us get feedback on anything that can help make this process easier. So that becomes the gist of it. Then once that happens, then it goes into our on-demand library, and we have 8 core categories that we'll share on the website, which is AI and tech, branding, strategic partnerships, leadership. So we fit in any one of the 8 categories, and that becomes 6 to 7 hours of training per topic. So we go deep on that. And what we're doing now is we priced it, our normal cost is $49 a month or $490 a year. What we decided to do is for the first 5,000 members, so we're in our 5,000 membership drive right now, between now and the end of the year, is we're doing a lifetime deal. $349, you're in for life, you never pay again. And we're doing that for very strategic reasons, you know. But so when we're speaking around, we end up picking 5, 6, 7 new members up per location because I speak a lot. So I'm from podcast, being on this incredible podcast here, to live events and things like that. So our objective is we spent the last 2 years building out the model and getting feedback from our members. So you have direct access to me. You know, you have direct access to us. You know, we built our onboarding process. We're continuing to improve it. So we did a lot of talking today, but what was missing from today is the actionable steps. So we're going in. You're seeing my screen. I'm going. Here's how we're going to prompt it. Here's how we're going to, use this prompt to narrow down your vision. All right, align this with that. All right, here's how we're going to interview someone so we can get that testimonial, and then we're going to use AI to convert it to a case study, and then we're going to place it on this page and place this here, and then we're going to optimize them for search. And now we got AI search to optimize for that. So they're going. So we get in it.
I like it, the actionable steps, and I love that you have the working 5 days in there as well. I feel like one thing you're suggesting, it's actually similar. We do something like this too, in a completely different way though, is like it's the accountability of a group like this.
Absolutely.
Because cool that we talk about this stuff or learn something, but if you don't actually get it done, then it's not going to do anything for you. So
and that becomes the biggest issue.
Sort of built in with it.
Yeah, you go in, and I know I mentioned my mentor a lot, but he calls them knowledge junkies. They go to these conferences, they get all jacked up on the knowledge, and they go back home, and 3 days later, it's business as usual. You haven't implemented it, you haven't integrated it into your system, so it's forgotten.
Yeah, totally. We always say knowledge isn't power, it's knowledge put into action that's power.
There you go. I like that.
Yeah. Jimmy, this has been great. Thank you, my friend, for jumping on. And if someone wants to reach out, check out online, find you, contact you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Sure. You can go to our website, which is movingforwardsmallbusiness.com. And somewhere on that homepage will be membership. You can go and check out all the stuff. We have tons of great case studies and all the other stuff. And of course, my favorite social media channel is LinkedIn. So I'm a major LinkedIn guy. So you Google my name, Jimmy Newson. I own all of that real estate. All of it. You'll find me any and everywhere. So that's
Jimmy Newson. Yeah.
So my background is in inbound marketing, so I'm all over it. So you'll find me if you really want to.
Beauty. All right. Thanks for listening to the podcast today. Amplify your impact. Comments, questions, thoughts, go check out Jimmy's stuff, and or you can post it down below on the platform that you're watching this on, because we do get to them and we'll address them in the future. Jimmy, thanks again for coming on, and we'll hopefully talk again soon.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure, Josh. Thanks for having me here.
All right.